Okay, we got The Unbearable Lightness of Being. It's a pretty good book. It's very dense, I found. That was my first thought. There's so many ideas going through this book.
Mm.
And it was you could read like a few pages and feel like you read, 50.
Yeah, no, I buy that. Especially at the beginning, he just like throws a lot of philosophy at you. And yeah, this is my little copy. This is actually my second time reading it. I got this in Prague actually last year.
Nice.
Wow.
And
Wow.
yeah, I love this book, man. I thought it was amazing. And I think I liked it more the second time reading it through because the first time I read it through, I was like, what the hell is this dude trying to say?
Yeah.
But the second time I really I kind of understood it more. And I think I would have to read it probably again to really understand it. But it's yeah, I thought it was an amazing book.
Yeah, that it's interesting how you mentioned second time you appreciated it a lot more because I feel like I'm gonna have to read it again, and that's not a criticism per se, actually. It's kind of making me appreciate the book more because he does throw a ton at you in the beginning and even throughout the entire story. There's like these little sort of interludes and sort of philosophical musings thrown throughout the narrative. So there's really a lot to unpack and a lot to pick apart.
Mm.
Um, but I wasn't expecting it because I kind of went into this book with like no knowledge of it, to be honest, other than I heard it was really good. So for me, it was definitely an interesting experience reading it, going in blind and, seeing it, how it unfolds in such a different way.
Yeah. So it takes place, it's kind of nonfiction fiction. It takes place during the Prague Spring, or most of it does. And it follows sort of a family who sort of get caught up in everything. There's Thomas is a surgeon, and he doesn't really want to follow the party line, and sort of gets in the end he sort of has to his job is like a window washer, and then and it's also filled with a lot of personal stuff that has nothing to do with the Prague Spring. um what did you guys think of the sort of sometimes almost overly graphic sex scenes that weren't really to do with the Prague Spring or anything else?
Well, something that I wasn't really expecting. Because I kind of had a general feeling like, okay, this is about the Prague Spring. We're gonna go into the political climate of it. So definitely at first it kind of threw me off, but I think as the book continued, um, it sort of made sense to Thomas's character because I think that was sort of the main thing. The main idea with Thomas is that, he could the idea was he could, have sex with as many people as he wanted, but still sort of maintain this relationship uh with what's her name? Teresa, right?
Hmm.
Right, yeah.
So it was part of his character, and it was sort of part of his journey. Like, I don't know, like what was your reaction to it?
I mean, I think the sex being like overly graphic is just sort of a characteristic of Kundera's writing. Like it seems like he's a daring writer and he's willing to like unearth ugliness really
Right.
well, or even not even ugliness, but like reality. He really wants to get detailed and but for Thomas's character, like he has to es muss sein, like it
Yeah,
must
that
be,
phrase comes
and
up a
his
lot,
Yes.
yeah.
yeah. So his purpose is like he thinks he has like these two purposes. One is surgery, which is his work, his life's passion, his ability to help people and to make the world somewhat of a better place. Because there's one point where he says like he never understood how people could make the world a better place just through writing. And that medicine was the only way to actually make the world a better place because you're actually helping people in a practical sense. But his other what he thinks is his other esmusen, his it must be, is sex, and what he says is that like every time he has sex, it's like he has his imaginary scalpel and he's like cutting into the other person's, like into the woman's personality, into a part of her that's not seen on the outside, and that he's digging somewhat deeper um, into her personality, and but at the same time, it's his all of his sex and stuff in this. Everything has like a pros and cons to it. There's this like so there's this part where it says that Sabina's art is like a double exposure. Like there's the outside, the surface, which is like like one image, and then there's the deeper layer to it. I think the novel itself is almost like a double exposure. Everything has this double exposure. Like there's that, I'm rambling, but there's that part where Thomas has sex with that woman on the rug on the floor, and she reminds him that there was a thunderstorm outside, and that was this beautiful moment. And he's like completely aghast. He's like, I didn't even remember there was a thunderstorm, and this woman had this like beautiful moment, and I completely missed it because I was like trying to like I was too focused on this thing, my imaginary scalpel or whatever. And in the end of the book, he gives up both, and he realizes that he doesn't need these two things like these ismusen. Like the final words of the book, I think, is that I don't have a mission. Nobody has a mission, Teresa. Missions are stupid.
Hmm.
Sorry, that was a big ramble.
No, no, that
No,
was
no,
good.
yeah,
That
that's
was a
good.
good.
That's how
The,
I felt about the book.
I,
Anyway.
it's interesting that it's why do you think he gives up in the end? Because I think he there's like this thought that um is a really old idea. I think it's even in like Plato that like as you get older, you get unhooked from lust. Like when you're young,
Mm,
it's like such a driving force, and you have lust and ambition for money and all this stuff. And then it's only as you mature and like get older and the testosterone in your body starts to lessen that you actually can calm down and like think about what's really important or like let go of those missions that you think you need or have.
mm. Um, well, I have thoughts, but David, do you have thoughts?
Well, I also think too, one of the reasons why maybe, as you were saying, he kind of let goes of these things is because also everything was sort of stripped from him throughout
Mm,
the story. Like he lost due to the newspaper article, which we could talk about more in depth because I thought that was a really in the reference to Oedipus, I thought that was a very
Yeah, that was interesting.
very powerful and interesting concept. But I also think because he kind of his ego kind of shatters in a lot of ways. Like it almost becomes for a guy like him, you know, who's this sort of womanizer and he's always um you know, he probably has a very high esteem to then kind of fall through the social ranks in his society. Um, I think that's part of the reason why as well he kind of has a change in heart, or at least kind of let goes of these sort of ideas that kind of plague him. But
mm.
um, I thought the other thing that was interesting too was, I mean, didn't he have the option to stay in Switzerland, right? Or was that another character?
No,
Or
he
am I?
did.
Oh, he did.
He could have stayed in Geneva, I think it was, and then let Teresa go. He has this
Yeah,
moment where he's
that was
Right.
very
Yeah.
interesting.
like he has this moment where he's walking through the streets and Teresa's gone, and he feels like a weight has been lifted off of him. And I think that's the whole um, dynamic of the book. That's what it begins with, is this debate whether um, lightness or heaviness is good. And I think, I mean, to the point of uh, Thomas having everything stripped from him, that's what Teresa says to him at the end of the book. She says, like, "Oh my God, um, look what I've done to you, Thomas. If I had never entered into your life, you'd still be a surgeon. You'd still be happy. You wouldn't be, a truck driver in this, you know, small town in the middle of nowhere. You'd still have a life." And he said, "Can't you see that I'm happy? Like, And I think by
Mm,
the end of the book, he realizes that these things, these ismosen, the things that must be, don't actually have to be. Like that he finds, I don't know, serenity in lightness, and that
mm,
he doesn't, I don't think he actually necessarily like the womanizing is stripped from him. I think he realizes that he doesn't need it.
yeah.
I still wonder if that's voluntary, if that's like a thing that he chose, or if it's like
Mm,
just something that happens with time. I don't
yeah.
know. I have no idea.
Because I think
It
there's
could be
this,
maturity too.
yeah, it could be, but he's like 40 at the beginning of the book, so I don't
Right.
know
Oh,
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
if you
He's
can
40, but
mature.
he's like acting like he's 25.
Yeah.
yeah.
But I
And
mean, there's
he
this part where he tells that, well, his son and one of the editors come to him and want him to
Oh,
sign this
yes.
petition, and he says to that, and they're like trying to convince him to sign this petition, and then he sort of realizes that like, yeah, I don't really care about any of this petition shit. It's like the only thing I really care about is protecting Teresa, and if I sign this petition, I can put her life um, in danger. And so he decides that like, and it's this. He says he had the same like black satisfaction when he told his first wife that he doesn't want to see his son and her ever again.
right. That's a
Um,
great scene.
yeah, and he says that like I don't know if what I was doing was right, but he knew that he was doing what he wanted to.
Mm.
Yeah,
W-
in that scene, so yeah, Thomas goes to Sabina, I believe, and he's like, I'm gonna be with you forever. We're gonna be together forever. I've left my wife and my kids.
Franz does,
And
not Thomas, right?
pardon me,
Franz goes to Sabina and says, "I've left my wife and
was it
kids."
Franz? I actually
It
don't,
was
I get
Franz.
confused a bit sometimes about
Yeah.
that. Okay, so Franz does that.
He leaves Mary
And
Claude and his daughter and
oh, Mary Claude,
tries
right.
to run
Okay.
away
Yeah.
to with Sabina. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so that happens, and then there's this wonderful like miscommunication where Sabina has this passionate night with him. And in his mind, he's like, oh, this is great. She's passionate. She's going to stay with me forever. And in her mind, she's like, I'm leaving. I'm never seeing this guy ever. Let's make this passionate because I'm
Mm-hmm.
never seeing him again. And I don't know. It's just a great moment. Uh, it
Yeah.
stuck out to me.
Yeah, it's like her final goodbye. And that's like sort of what I was saying with like the double exposure. It's like even there's also that whole like lexicon of misunderstood words, like the words between Sabina and Franz that they um like don't they have completely different views on the same word. But like with
Yeah.
Thomas, this is like a really I think crucial part of the book with Thomas like just always deciding what he wants to do, like what he feels like is right is like it goes to this like reoccurring idea that because we only have one life and that life doesn't recur infinitely, that we can't perfect our lives, that um, what is it, that we don't know what is good or what is best, and that he has this moment where he's like um, standing like at his window staring across the courtyard wondering, like deliberating, oh, uh, should I tell Teresa to come here, should I be with her, and then he realizes, oh, my like indecision is completely normal because we only have this one life. I can't test my hypothesis, like whether what's better or what's worse. I just have to kind of do
Right.
what
Yeah.
feels right. And I think it's like a recurring theme. Like same thing with like Sabina's long line of infinite betrayals.
I
You know?
have that page open right now. I was about to read it. It's such a
Okay.
great passage. Do you want to read it? You're a better reader than I am.
No, no, go crazy, man. Do it. I
Okay.
don't have the page open, so.
Um, yeah, so Sabina's a great character. On 122 of my edition, it's she's sort of thinking about all this stuff. Until that time, her betrayals had filled her with excitement and joy because they opened up new paths to new adventures of betrayal. But what if the paths came to an end? One could betray one's parents, husband, country, love. But when parents, husband, country, and love were gone, what was left to betray? Sabina felt emptiness all around her. What if that emptiness was the end goal of all her betrayals? Yeah,
Damn,
I don't
that's
know.
so good.
Yeah, she's and yeah, so Sabina's like an artist. And she's wrapped up in all this. And yeah, she's got some great parts in this book.
What did you, but what were your thoughts on the whole sort of was it in Thailand in the end or
I think it was
France?
Cambodia
Cambodia. I
where
thought that
he,
was fascinating too.
yeah.
It kind of took it kind of came out of nowhere, at least for me when I was reading it. But in some ways it has that sort of double exposure theme as well there because it's all about um I think there's this huge sort of uh debate that happens between the actress and then the Parisian intellectuals. And
Hmm.
I thought that was very fascinating.
Also
Also
very
funny
funny.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not a lot has changed there, that's for sure, with celebrities. But was there anything that you guys didn't like about the book or that you were sort of indifferent on?
I fucking loved it, so I'm not gonna speak.
There's
Liam?
one scene where it's so graphic, I don't even want to mention it. It's like he's talking about the end of a woman's um the end of a
What, her
woman's
butthole?
digestive tract in a
Oh,
very graphic way. I was just like,
yeah.
oh God, why do you do that? Why is he saying
Jeez.
that?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think I remember that.
in the most unsexy possible way, in the most animalistic way. That bothered me a little, but that's
Yeah, that's some of the
okay.
thing. Some of the like the sex in the book. Some of it's very kind of. In some ways, it feels very. And I mean, it aligns with the sort of surgical background, but it almost seems like it's not as sensual, I guess, in some parts.
Yeah,
It's very raw and just sort of like matter of fact,
Hmm.
yeah,
for lack of a
definitely.
better word.
Yeah.
So I didn't find it was very uh and I think that's his style as a writer.
Mhm.
He's able to kind of deal with these lofty ideas and concepts, but deliver them in a way that's very, it never comes across as pretentious. It's always sort of authentic and to the point, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's
Um,
also part of Thomas's character because he like try to differentiates love and sex. Like those are two completely. Whereas for Teresa, both of those things are the same. But for him, like love is one domain, sex is another domain,
yes,
and that he has this like really almost profound. It's very strange because he's like such a womanizer and like all over the place, but at the same time he has this like really profound love for Teresa. There's this one part where he imagines that like he finds the perfect woman and he has the perfect house and the perfect life, and then he sees Teresa outside of his window, sad and alone, and he just says fuck it and abandons his perfect life and jumps out the
right,
window and goes and holds her hands to and abandons everything, and he says he would abandon everything, all of his purposes, all of his ismusen, just to ismusen or however you pronounce it. I don't speak German, to be with her, and it's really, yeah, I think it's really it's almost beautiful in a way, but it's like yeah, it's a weird book, and I think the one
yeah,
thing I didn't really like, or I maybe not really like, but it threw me, and I think I might have to read it again to understand the purpose. But he reminds you or reminds the reader like two or three times that this is just a fiction and that I'm not going to try to convince you that
Right. Yeah.
my characters are real. They were born out of a situation. Like Teresa was um, born out of a rumbling stomach, and Thomas was born out of a phrase, einmal ist keinmal or something like whatever happens once might as well never have happened at all. Um, yeah.
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 Are you thinking that maybe this was inspired by aspects of real life or the people themselves? Like he's almost, or do you think it's the
Yeah,
narrator is?
it feels like autofiction to me a little bit.
It does, and
Yeah,
it's really strange though. It's he's like trying to. It seems like he's trying to pull the cord and make remind you that this is just a fiction, but everything feels so real.
it does. Yeah, it does. Like, and that's the other thing too. There's kind of these spots in the book where like he tells you directly what he's going to do. Like now we're going to talk about this or now we're going to like now I love that. I like that aspect where the narrator almost like makes him or herself known to the reader
Mm,
very obviously, and is pulling the reader in a particular direction, which
right.
I thought, but that did take me off guard initially. I was like, okay, what's going on here? Um, but it ultimately worked with the style of the book. What did you think about his relationship with his son? Because I thought that was really interesting.
I just thought it was sad. I just thought it
Yeah.
was kind of weird, and he was very
Like
selfish.
why I was kind of confused. Like why do you think he was so cold to his son? Like why do
Mm,
you think he was so like his son was obviously he made several attempts, and I think his son was actually probably a good person, or at least the way the author was trying to portray him, like he had good values.
mhm.
Like why do you think Thomas was just so cold?
I figured it was because of the relationship with the son's mother was so
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, that's
But
what I
yeah,
figured too. But at the same time, like when he's a mature, like 18,
yeah,
19 year old, you'd think that you'd at least be more reciprocal. I could see him
yeah.
being maybe it's too painful for him if he's like 10 years old
Yeah,
or
Thomas is
something.
cold though. He's a cold like
Yeah.
throughout the whole book. I was kind of um, he's not loyal to Teresa, and obviously he's causing her pain. And
Mm,
Teresa sort of bottles it up inside of her. And there's at no point does Thomas consider that maybe I should just stop. Maybe I should stop with this
Yeah.
stuff. Um, he's just a cold person.
yeah.
Yeah.
As a reader, though, the whole time you're like, why don't you just stop like torturing Teresa? It's
Right,
Yeah.
like,
right.
okay, so Thomas abandoning his son essentially. I think it relates to like I guess one of the theses, if you could call it that, because there's so many theses going on in the book of weight and lightness. And weight seems to be like responsibility, a burden to bear, and lightness is essentially freedom. And there's I think the question of the book and the interesting aspect of Kundera's writing style and the book itself is something that he actually writes. He says that the novel is not the author's confession. The novel is actually the uh, author's investigation, or something
Mm.
along those lines. It's like a almost uh, like a thesis, and he's trying to test the thesis, or it's like an experiment. And Thomas, when he like abandons his wife and kid, he gets like a sort of satisfaction from it, like a great burden has been lifted from him, and so there is this sort of lightness to it, this dynamic. I mean, it is cold and it is heartless, and uh, even when it's really callous too. Like he doesn't like seeing the way his son's mouth moves, or like
Right.
the
Huh.
word God being repeated like over and over from his own mouth. It just like gives him the creeps. But but yeah, there's this like, did you notice like this sort of dynamic between like responsibility and lightness and heaviness, and what's good and what's bad? I think that's like the
Yeah,
thing that every one of the characters struggles with.
yeah. It felt like one of the um I think I'm reading into it a little bit, but one of the things is like thinking back and then sort of worrying about the fact that you really can't be certain if you made the right decision or the wrong decision.
Mm.
And he talks in the very beginning about the infinite recurrence. I think he mentions Nietzsche,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
if you
The
had to
eternal
live
return.
eternal recurrence or whatever. Yeah. Um, if you're living this life over and over again, maybe you can go back and fix one or make a different decision and then it affects your life in all these different ways. But because we only have one life, it's like impossible to know that one decision definitely caused this. And
Mm.
that I mean that's what I took to mean the unbearable lightness of being. Like
Mm.
um it's so frustrating to have one life and to have no certainty about any of the decisions you make.
Mm.
And that's kind of the whole thing when Thomas goes back to the Czech Republic in a lot of ways. Like he could have stayed in Switzerland, but that one simple and small decision changed everything for him. Like his life became completely different. Not necessarily in a bad way, but I mean, it depends how you read it, really. Because as you were saying, Thomas, at the end of the book, he seems relatively speaking happy.
Mm.
And I got that reading too. Um, but yeah, it's definitely, and well, the other thing that I thought was interesting is how it's almost did you find the structure almost circular in some ways? Like it jumps around, or not circular, but although it's kind of against that idea, that circular eternal recurrence, which is basically, this idea that, your life is going to be repeated constantly over and over again, in
Mm.
layman's term.
Oh, that's
But
interesting.
I
Yeah.
found like the book itself almost had that a bit because like in the middle of the book, it just starts talking about things that haven't happened yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Uh,
definitely
like
non-linear.
it's not linear, which I
Yeah.
thought was because I know obviously the book isn't supportive of the sort of the eternal return hypothesis, but it seems like its structure almost has that shape. I mean, I might be going on a whim there, but
Mm.
No,
um,
that's I didn't think about it that way until yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I guess yeah, it does definitely have that circular feeling. I didn't think about that, but that's yeah, and he breaks it up with a very confusing way in which you're not sure who's with which mistress and which either it's
yes,
the father or the son who's with the mistress at the time because
yeah.
both the father and the son sleep with Sabina. So it's very confusing there.
Mm.
And even the characters, like, because I was thinking it was just about Thomas and Teresa, first pages, but then, I didn't realize how much the book ultimately dedicates to Sabina and France, right? So, but yeah, that was one thing that kind of I thought was interesting. Maybe it goes back to the double exposure, as you were saying, Tom, like just, I don't know, because obviously the book isn't supporting this eternal return idea. It's very
Mm.
clear, but at least when you read it, it feels like, you know, now we're here, now we're there. It's like all these sort of events are just bleeding into each other, which I thought
Yeah,
was,
you find out halfway through the book that Teresa and Thomas die in a car accident, like the truck crash.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, right in the middle.
Yeah. So there's like it's like spoiling things and it's like a very unconventional way to tell a story, but it makes things more interesting. And sometimes like the first chapter focuses on Thomas's perspective, and then another chapter will be from Teresa's, and then the next will be Sabina, and then
Yeah, I
Franz,
love
and then yeah.
the switching of perspectives too. I thought was really another strength of the novel. And the best section I think that exemplifies that, and I know you mentioned it already, was the lexicon of misunderstood words.
Mm,
I thought that was
Mm.
so brilliant. Just the way because it makes sense to everyone. Like a certain places, images, words, ideas, it's almost like every person has a different meaning of it. To one person, the home might be a beautiful place, but to another person, it might be a place of torment and
mm,
anxiety, right? So
yeah. And
I
there's this
thought that
like
was brilliant.
yeah, and there's this constant again double exposure between characters, like contrast between Thomas and Teresa, or Thomas and Sabina, or Sabina and Franz. And yeah, when and each character, yeah, does have a different perspective on a similar um, situation, like the church that they enter, Sabina and Franz, and Franz sees this church where all the it's just empty basically, and all of the art and beauty and all of the words and the excess of art and culture and all this garbage is like swept away. And then Sabina sees that like beauty has just been sort of destroyed by these people, and people don't appreciate beauty anymore, and the world is just becoming an uglier place. And like the only thing, her like entire life's purpose is to create beauty, and um, Yeah, and it's really it is yeah, it's a cool book. I think I could talk about it forever. I don't know.
Um, I've got a quote. We mentioned the Oedipus aspect
Mm,
of it. And as David mentioned, that the fact that all these the circles kind of um I don't know what I was saying. I'm just gonna read the quote. Okay. Let us concede that a Czech public prosecutor in the early 50s who called for the death of an innocent man was deceived by the Russian secret police, and that the government of his own country and deceived by his own country. But now that we all know the accusations to have been absurd and the executed to have been innocent, how can that self-same public prosecutor defend his purity of heart by beating himself on the chest and proclaiming, "My conscience is clear. I didn't know. I was a believer." Isn't his "I don't know, I was a believer" at the very root of his irreparable guilt? It was in this connection that Thomas recalled the tale of Oedipus. Oedipus did not know he was sleeping with his own mother, yet when he realized what had happened, he did not feel innocent. It's a great quote, and it's at the heart of him getting kicked out as a surgeon. He writes a letter sort of comparing this, the uprising in Prague and the subsequent, what would you call it? I guess invasion by
Downturn,
Russian, yeah,
invasion, yeah.
yeah,
mm,
by Russia, as comparing it to Oedipus sleeping with his mother, killing his father. Um, yeah, it's just saying you were tricked in this case, talking about a prosecutor, just saying you were tricked or you were a true believer doesn't absolve you of any guilt, which I thought was really interesting.
mm.
I think that's the unbearable weight in some regards. Like, can you really say, and I think his point was that, can you really say sheer ignorance is a good excuse for being complicit in something that's wrong, right? And I think that was the entire point of that passage. And Oedipus, right, was he was guilty by he was guilty and he accepted it. Like he accepted his fate. Like he took full responsibility in the end. Whereas I guess
Right.
the people in the society, some of them weren't taking full responsibility, which is why they were saying, "Oh, we're not guilty."
Yeah, and
Mm.
there's some crimes that even if you're doing it with the best intention or you're completely ignorant of what you're doing, there's some crimes that are still so horrible that you are going to feel guilt no matter what, or you
And
should
it
feel guilt no
goes,
matter what.
yeah, and it goes back to what you were saying initially about how, this idea in the book was, you only have one life. And it's not gonna, you know, be part of this eternal reoccurrence. So how can you know what is right, right? And I think that's what the book also points to,
Mm.
the unbearableness of that responsibility the unbearable weights of just having one life and all this responsibility on you, but also the lightness of maybe not necessarily knowing or
Mm.
searching for that freedom out of it. So
Yeah, I agree that the well what the idea of eternal recurrence, like in the case of history, because I mean a large part of this book is like kind of a sketch of life in Prague and the history of Europe essentially. Um, is I think he mentions that history, even in the entire history of the world of humanity, is because it doesn't reoccur, is just a sketch. It's an experiment, and it's unbearably light.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
says at the beginning of the book that uh, that everything is therefore like whatever happens doesn't matter because it'll never happen again, and therefore it's cynically permitted. Like he says, he somehow comes to terms with Hitler, like at the beginning of the book, like because I forget what he says exactly, but like
He says that Hitler and Stalin
or
are
Stalin's son.
very. He
oh,
did a story
Stalin's
about
son,
the
that was
Stalin
so
son.
funny.
That was funny. Yeah. but he says something about Hitler that was like they're more in common than they are different. It was like it wasn't a very long line, I remember, but I do remember
Yeah,
it
he
sticking
said
with
that
me.
he was like reading, or he was looking at reading something about Hitler and seeing pictures of Hitler as a boy, and that even though that he lived through Hitler's reign, and that some of his family members died to him, what was that in comparison to the memories and the time that he would never get back? And if there's this, if there is a eternal return, we're eternally nailed to history like Christ on the cross. And since we aren't, I think like I do, like David, you said earlier that it seems that Kundera is like sort of he's not supportive of the theory of eternal return, and yeah, I think that's like that's pretty clear. I mean, especially in regards to his like view of history, like because I don't know, it's almost like
Yeah,
a cynical view, but like everything is essentially permitted because it's not going to happen again. Like you could really do
Right.
whatever the fuck you want to do.
Would you say it borders on nihilism in some ways? Or it could?
Could,
Yeah. Yeah,
you know,
that's what I was kind of thinking too, in some
yeah,
ways.
I love that quote about the sketch. The like history is just the first sketch. You don't
mm,
get a second chance at any of it, and I found it a bit nihilistic. That's kind of sad. It's true, I think, but
yeah.
yeah, definitely not inspiring.
Anything else you guys would like to touch on with the book?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about I mean you were talking about like the Soviet regime and everything, and that reminded me of like the May Day parades and like Sabina's attitude towards the communist regime. But it wasn't like she wasn't actually against the communist regime. She was an enemy of Kitch. Did you
It
guys
was
remember
more
that?
of an aesthetic rebellion than anything.
Yeah, because like Soviet like propaganda was like very kitsch. It was like you know happy farmers smiling and uh, the Soviet films at the time. The worst thing that could happen in those films is like a disagreement between lovers, and it was and there was the theory of those films was that people needed to distract themselves from communist reality because communist reality was like so brutal in
Sucked.
comparison
Yeah.
to communist reality. Um, but she hated that idea because she was like, "Oh my God!" She was like, "I wouldn't survive like 10 minutes in like that Soviet idealist utopia. I would prefer the Soviet Union of like bread, like lineups for food and depravity and all that." Because I can't stand kitsch. And then she says at one point because the French intellectuals try to like grab onto her cause and turn her into kitsch, into like, oh, this great artist is like, rebelling against the communist regime with her art. And she's like, my enemy is not communism, it's kitsch. And you're trying to turn me into a different form of kitsch. And
Hmm.
like, I think this book, like, it like transformed my whole perspective because now I'm seeing things like, because the scene, I mean, I feels like this book is very much like Eichmann in Jerusalem, which I started reading, very critical or hesitant towards ideologies.
Yeah. What part was that again? Um,
Um, Let me
what
look at
chapter?
my.
Because there's a lot of good lines there.
Yeah, I'd have to find.
And it
Well,
also explains well what kitsch is, in case
Right?
our readers want
Yeah,
our
he tries
listeners
to,
want to know.
yeah, he redefines kitsch in what he says is the original version. I don't remember exactly where it was.
it's like a romantic over sentimentality, essentially. And it's like prevailed since the
But yeah, but he redefines
Romantic
it as
period.
not human, I think, or it was something like that. Like he redefines it as the,
Yeah.
Well, it's
is it a German word?
artificial.
Or
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
a German word. It's like the love of annihilation or something. That's what Kitch is, or
Right.
the annihilation of
right, yeah.
individuality. It's like this hold hands, everybody be the same. And she talked. Well, the author talks about Sabina's idea of the totalitarianism of Kitch, and I really loved that one. Um,
Oh, I think I found it right here.
yeah, I found it's in my copy. It's on page 249. Um, those of us who live in a society where various political tendencies exist side by side and competing influences cancel or limit one another can manage more or less to escape the kitsch inquisition. The individual can preserve his individuality. The artist can create unusual works. But whenever a single political movement corners power, we find ourselves in the realm of totalitarian kitsch. When I say totalitarian, what I mean is that everything that infringes on kitsch must be banished for life. Every display of individualism, because a deviation from the collective is a split in the eye of the smiling brotherhood. Every doubt, because anyone who starts doubting details will end by doubting life itself. All irony, because in the realm of kitsch, everything must be taken quite seriously. And the mother who abandons her family, or the man who prefers men to women, thereby calling into question the holy decree, be fruitful and multiply. In this light, we can regard the gulag as the septic tank used by totalitarian kitsch to dispose of its refuse.
Wow.
Yeah, it's good part. Uh,
Yeah, there's
I
just so
yeah.
much in this book.
No, it's I just a side note, the septic tank of the Soviet, like it's just a great, I don't know, he's good at that stuff.
Yeah, I think Alexander Solzhenitsyn also referred to the gulag as a septic tank.
Oh wow.
But yeah, I think I, I don't know. This whole book changed my perspective, and now I'm like, I see some things, or I see some politician, or I hear something, and I'm like, oh my God, that's so sentimental. That's so fucking kitsch, and it makes me, it's revolting. And I used to be like, I don't know, a little bit apprehensive towards irony. I thought irony was like something that's like maybe overused, or like uh, or like even harmful, because it's not genuine. It's like and it's almost cynical and negative in a sort of way. But this book itself is very, very ironical, or like uses
Hmm.
very heavy irony, and used in a way to like sort of show the truth, I think.
What would you say, like, with this idea of kitsch? What was the most glaring example that you came across recently in your life where you saw it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is kitsch?
Hmm. I don't know if I could think of a specific. Well, I guess there was a very silly example, but there was like uh, I think it was the Democratic um, convention or whatever it's called in the US.
Right.
Anyway, this girl got up on stage and read this poem about freedom and loving the United States and all this stuff, and I was just like, oh my God, I wanted to puke. It's like poetry. I think most poetry, or not most poetry, a lot of like modern poetry, especially contemporary poetry, is so kitsch. Like,
Yeah.
or it's yeah, or just things people say that are just like not even kitsch in a way, but cliches, and it's the antithesis of originality, of like free thinking, of like
And
trying to
and
think for
of
yourself, or
and of reality itself. Like I think that was
right.
kind of my main takeaway with that concept was how, she's an artist, so she's looking for the authenticity of life in some ways,
Mm,
the authenticity of beauty. And kitsch is the antithesis of that because it it's it's not real. I don't know. Like it's just not it lacks sort of the grounding of what life is. And that's why she harps the point that, she would rather take the brutality, the
mm,
the 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 truth of communism, or at least her experience under it, where it's awful, than this
Hmm.
sort of you maybe utopic uh this utopic dream that's a lie.
Yeah, because
Um,
that's what kitsch is, right? It's an illusion.
it's an illusion. And I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I think your examples are good. I think you see it a lot in politics,
Yeah.
which is just full of like promises and platitudes.
Yeah, she mentions that. It's like Kitch is the politician like kissing a baby.
Yeah, or like, shaking a guy's hand in front of an open for business sign or something like that. You just see it in a movie or something. Uh, the white teeth, the big smile.
Hmm.
Um,
I feel like that's why, just as you were saying that, Thomas, I remember J.D. Salinger and like the Catcher in the Rye, and like him, the protagonist, always referring to stuff as phony. And
yeah,
like it seems like this is just the reality that humans create in every era. It's a phoniness. It's a
Hmm.
fakeness.
it's sort of a series of illusions.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
feel like every sort of ism, especially in this book, like fascism or communism or capitalism, creates its own sort of kitsch.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
And people fall into like the stereotypes or the repeating of certain phrases. And I mean, even Sabina says that like lurking underneath every political movement is a more sinister evil, and that's a group of people in unison, marching in unison with their fists raised in the air.
yeah,
Yeah, there's another thing that Sabina said that I wanted to mention where she is she's walking in Prague, I think, after the revolution, and she's sort of has to like hit these other women with her umbrella. And she because so it's raining and she's got the umbrella, and then the men will like raise their umbrella and the women will sort of have to charge at each other.
That's Teresa, though.
It's
She's the one.
Teresa. Okay, see,
Yeah, they
I'm
mix
totally
them up.
mixing up everyone. So
it's
and
happened to me
she
before.
she's hitting the women with her umbrella, and she's like realizing that okay, when the Prague Spring was happening, when the Russians were coming in, these women were wearing short skirts. They were trying to tempt the Russian soldiers. They were, trying being provocative with their fashion and just dissenting in any way they could. And now all we're doing is hitting each other with umbrellas, and it's this great like sad moment where these I don't know. You can exist in this little moment as one, you know, um, as a group of Czech women just like fighting the Russians, and then the next moment you're like hitting each other with umbrellas on a raining day.
Yeah, there's a lot of good little moments like that scattered throughout the book. Like even like sort of things like that would normally feel insignificant, but have such a huge significance to what's getting across.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, I'm realizing I have more notes. Okay, wait. Zizek says when you lose the wife, you often lose the mistress, and perfection is always out of reach. And as soon as you think you have it, it slips away. Um, I think he said that in the Peterson debate. I can't remember, but yeah, that's definitely in this book. Maybe it's a communist thing where you've got the mistress, you've got the wife, and then you kind of you want to live with the mistress, or you think your life's gonna be better if you leave the burden of the wife and the kid, and then actually it all comes tumbling down when you finally achieve that dream.
Yeah, and that's sort of what happens to Franz. He has this like vision that he's gonna run away with his mistress and finally start living in truth. Like that's his kitsch. His kitsch is
Right.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That's
must
good.
live in truth. And then
yeah,
he ends up leaving his wife, and Sabina leaves him. And then for the
Right.
rest of his
Yeah.
life, he has this like image of Sabina as his ideal, that he
but
like
he can never
worships.
get it.
Yeah.
Right.
His
And
his it's so
Sabina
sorry, go
becomes
ahead.
religion.
no, no, David, go ahead.
He's a very sad character, like now that I think about it, because
Mm,
in the end too, it kind of reflects his intellectual life, because after he comes back from Cambodia, he ends up dying there. It's
Mm.
very tragic way he goes. It happens very randomly and suddenly. So maybe his whole sort of intellectual idealization was part of his kitsch too.
Yeah, he had, well, his Kitch is like sort of the liberal ideal that humanity just forever is a progress forward.
The enlightened liberal, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
that which isn't sort of typified by the march of history, like moving forward. And it's so funny. Like he goes to Cambodia to help, like thinking he's making a difference. Like I'm gonna walk with all these doctors, and we're gonna march, and we're gonna like send in aid, and this is Europe. This is the march of history, and actually nothing ends up happening. Actually, really gruesome. Like a
And they all
reporter
hide and yeah.
steps on a landmine and gets blown into pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That scene kind of dispels all his illusions, maybe. Or at least it's intended for the reader to take note of that because it is, as you say, like he's going to Cambodia with this sort of, look at our intellectual movement, we're
Mm.
helping people and then the reality of war comes in place.
Yeah. And
And
there's that
it's
such a
awful.
sorry.
It's sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's all I was gonna say.
Okay, yeah, and there's that like horribly like very funny but very dark moment where like the famous actress and like the musician are holding that like white flag or whatever, and then the cameraman steps on the landmine and gets blown to pieces and actually
Yeah.
splatters blood all over the flag. And they like both look up and then they like become sort of happy. They're like, "Oh, look, we've actually like,
Yeah.
we have dipped our flag and like consecrated it with blood or whatever." And
We're
and
the
like
real thing.
it's so oh, it's so brutal.
It's so yeah.
And like the actress getting up on stage in front of all these French intellectuals and being like, these communists, they are against freedom or whatever, and like, talking about her kitsch. And then the French intellectuals, they have this, they're also like mesmerized by the liberal ideal of the, march of history always being a march of progress. And they have their own kitsch, which isn't very much different from the actresses. And they're all sort of they're all liberals, but they all disagree with each other. It's like this really, yeah, interesting aspect. But yeah,
Do you guys think life is a linear progression, like progress happens over time, or is it like a circle?
I mean, I've noticed, at least in my own life, patterns. Like I don't know, just like things
Like, do you think
almost recurring. I'm not. Anyway, sorry,
do,
go.
do you think it like I feel like this book like progress isn't like this. It's not like doesn't go up, and
Mm,
maybe progress is this little like circle that like at different eras it's better or worse, but it never really there's no going towards an apex.
Are you saying like progress in terms of like political or like societal
Mm,
progress or like
yeah, I
just
don't know. That's a
personal?
good question. I feel like if I
mm,
said technology or science or something, I would you would have to believe it's kind of like that. But
mm,
then
I
I
think
guess I'm impersonal.
yeah, I mean with technology, I think like objectively it is getting better in terms
mm,
of the metrics that it brings like our phones, our computers,
mm.
AI, like all these things are getting faster, efficient, better,
Medical science.
medical science. But I mean, in I think like socially, the problems, I don't know.
Mm.
It's it
I don't know. I'm not wise enough. Like I feel like ask me when I'm 80 and I'll have a good answer. But uh,
I'm reading the reason I'm thinking
it's
about
it's
that.
hard. It's hard. It's hard. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I can see both, maybe.
Mm. Um, I'm reading a Buddhist text. There's like this Penguin has an edition that's like Buddhist sacred text almost. but that they don't have like
Interesting.
a Bible themselves, or not in the way that Christians do. Um, and there's this thing about like the circle, like
The samsara.
people are stuck in these little
Yeah.
circles of like pain, pleasure, regret, like these little things that they get themselves stuck into. But I guess that's more personal, not really like a
You could
civilizational
say it
cycle.
is, it could be a civilization.
Mm.
Like civilizations come and go. Like at a point in time, Rome was the sort of pinnacle of civilization for that period. But I mean, this is a cliche. This is kitsch. Rome fell too. There, I'm supporting the kitsch. Uh,
But I
but
guess you're also supporting the idea that things kind of move in cycles, like empires rise and fall.
yeah, maybe it's a half kitsch, half not. Maybe the saying itself. But I don't know. Like I think like personally, it feels like it's more. I don't know. There's progress, but it feels like certain points it is cyclical. You know,
Mm,
like as you said, Thomas, certain patterns reappear. I don't
mm.
know.
I mean, well, in this book, I see the personal relationships almost as a metaphor for history itself, or at least the history uh, of Prague and the Czech
Yeah.
people. Like because things, um, well, things ha essentially happen once, and li our lives are a sketch, and history itself is a sketch. Um, I don't know. I guess this is pretty cliche, but history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And I
Mm.
see that happening in history. I mean, Russia attempting to annex more land. When I saw that happening, I was reading about like the Second World War at the same time, and how Hitler started off by like annexing Poland and like
Hmm.
slowly moving and taking more land. And I was like, oh God. But at the same time, uh, in my own life, I see myself making the same mistakes, and I'm like,
Yeah.
why am I so stupid?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I
here,
don't,
here.
yeah, what I mean, well, how do we I'm the exact same thing. You make the same mistakes over and over again. And then it's sort
Yeah.
of like you get to a point when it's been like years of trying to do solve this problem and you can't solve it. And then I wonder if like I'm so you surrender control to something, but then I think maybe that's giving up. Maybe that's like the fact that I've lost, like I'm giving up something, uh admitting defeat.
Mm. Yeah, well, I mean, like, I see progress in my life that, like, I'm not living in a shared basement apartment and like ultra broke and hating my life. And that now I'm like, I have like a good friend circle and a decent job and like all this nice things. But at the same time, uh, I do see myself making the same mistakes. It's like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
I don't
Same
know.
here.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
Maybe that,
like with and also I got a fucking university education. I thought I'd be smarter at this point, you know?
yeah. 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 Well, maybe Liam, that Buddhist book will have some good answer.
Yeah,
Maybe,
please
maybe,
bring
yeah.
us
Yeah.
enlightenment.
Please bring us the enlightenment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I got it there. I could look through it. The last thing I wanted to say about the book is that I feel like a big theme is the grass is always greener. There was this
Yeah.
interesting part where, okay, it's the bottom of
Oh, there's
103.
Kitch again.
Yeah,
Grass is always greener.
that's a big catch. Well done.
The bottom of 103, Sabina and friends are it's in one of those chapters that's like the disagreements of how you define things. And for Franz, who hasn't lived through a revolution, he has romantic ideas about revolution, and he sort of yearns for that. And for Sabina, the that revolution is a real thing. It's about death. It's about suffering. It's not an imaginary it's not something imaginary that can be. It's not a fantasy for her. It's real life, and for him, it's a fantasy. And they both, are sort of looking at each other and don't understand how the other person can feel that way about revolution.
Mm.
Yeah, I thought that was fascinating. Um, I guess that goes also back to uh I don't know, the idea of idealization or romanticization in reality, right? Like, and I think that's one of the big ideas that Sabina rebels against. And this connects back to the idea or the notion of kitsch, right? It's this notion that, um, she would rather take the brutal inauthenticity or authenticity of life than the sort of lie of but that's inauthentic but beautiful, or maybe tries to be beautiful. I mean, her notion is that it's not beautiful. um I don't know. I think with Franz, he's this sort of idealist, right? And he's
Mm.
this sort of enlightened academic idealist. And I think throughout the story, I don't know what the author's getting at with him. Is he critiquing Franz?
He comes off as naive.
Like he comes off as naive. Yeah, I was about to say that too. Like he comes off as kind of, yeah, naive. I think that's the right word.
I
Maybe
I
not
took it
ignorant.
I took it as just it's just a fact that you're always going to be yearning for the thing you don't have. And I
Yeah.
think he sees it as revolution is purpose and fighting and a big goal that everyone can strive towards. And Sabina just doesn't see it that way because she lived through it, and you need to live through it in order to
Mm.
reject it. I guess that's how I took it.
She had to experience, yeah, she went through it. She experienced it.
Yeah, it's almost like I mean, like the double vision of the whole story, of like
Yeah.
the double vision of art and of well, each of their perspectives are like altered by their experience, like you guys mentioned. Um, like Sabina sees art as something that's almost purifying, I'd say. Just to well to stay away from kitsch because she is the enemy of kitsch, but she like beauty is actually a value of hers, and but you know Franz is a university professor, and he spends all of his time just like churning out articles and papers and words, and there's this one part where he says like um, his desire is like to you know be wordless, to like clear out all words, to be like consumed by a sound, by music, because music is the only true art form because it's absolutely wordless. And so for him, like art is what's the word? It's like superfluous. It's an excess. It's not necessary. It's just self-indulgent. And but for her, art is like it's necessary. It's like necessary for her as breathing is.
And isn't he a humanities prof or
He's a historian, isn't he? Or am I imagining things?
I might let me
Because I know he's in one of the humanities, but or liberal arts at least, but I'm not sure which.
because I was gonna say if he was like a, I don't know, an English professor, that'd be really, I think he's just a professor.
It doesn't
I
mention.
yeah, I'm trying to find it. I
Yeah,
don't know, maybe it's just a passing line. But anyways, I don't think it's like that's a huge important detail. I mean, I think it is important, but
yeah.
I was kind
Well,
of
I feel like at least in Franz's character, there's this like sort of contrast that he's like physically very strong. There's this one part where Sabina is like complimenting his how muscular he is, and he like picks up a chair with one hand or whatever, and then she's immediately sad because he has all this physical strength, but he doesn't really have like moral strength.
Right, I remember that. Yeah,
yes.
that's very. Yeah, I thought that was very modern. I was like this sort of. what everyone says about the younger generations, us included, is like sort of mental frailty.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so that aspect I found really amazing. How modern this feels. Like I felt like this could have been written last year, and when I looked it up, I was surprised that it was published in 1984. He actually wrote it in 1982. But like how
Wow.
graphic the descriptions are about sex, how open he is about sex, um, feel like, and all the details just feel so modern. So how did you guys? Because I remember, was it both your first time reading it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because I remember feeling like off, or at least off put by the ending of it, or at least the what I perceived as the message of the book, that like there are no missions. Like missions are stupid. And I had this like feeling that, so what is he saying? That we shouldn't have a purpose, we shouldn't work towards anything, we shouldn't strive towards anything. And I was very sort of confused. And but now on my second reading, I have a deeper maybe understanding or appreciation for it. I don't know.
Why do you say that he the ending is that um there's no purpose? Like did you
Well, that's what I feel
I
like I read into the ending, because
uh
like Teresa's apologizing for ruining his life, and he said, "What are you talking about? You haven't ruined anything. Haven't you
right.
noticed I'm actually happy here?" And then she's like, "Well, but I like ruined your mission. Like your mission uh, was surgery, was your practice, your medical practice." And then he says, um, "People don't have missions. There are no missions. Missions are stupid." And that's almost like there's almost like that's almost like sort of nihilistic in a way, but at the same time, it is this lightness, it is this freeing as well of like any sort of burden. And whether that's good or bad, that's kind of a question that the author leaves up to you. And that's what I love so much
Right.
about this book is
Yeah.
that it felt like a investigation. It didn't feel like the author was definitively trying to say this. He was
It
trying to
wasn't
investigate the issue.
didactic. Like it wasn't like
Yeah.
this is the clear message of the story. This is what you should take away. Um,
Yeah, I get no, sorry, go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead, Liam. No,
Okay,
no, no.
I
You
go
go
first.
ahead.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
I found that part that Thomas that you were mentioning, and I guess I at the time I thought um it's more of a like the mission I was originally on isn't what I thought it was. Like I thought it was to be a surgeon to help people in that way, and then I guess I thought it was sort of like he reassigns that mission to Teresa, and like
Hmm.
that
Mm.
becomes his mission, so that maybe but he does say that yeah, there's no missions, and being free of that thought is a wonderful thing. But
Yeah.
I don't
Like
know. I didn't
he
see it as too super nihilistic.
like he had
Yeah.
this life of, fucking as many women as possible and being a surgeon, and these were his two life purposes, and then he abandons them both, and like you'd think he'd be depressed, and that's what you know, Teresa's trying to console him on, but then you find out that he's happy, and it's a very strange. Sorry, David, go ahead.
No, 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 no. Continue.
No, I'm done. Yeah, go for
Okay.
it.
Well, it's hard to say. I'm kind of in the middle between because when I first saw it, I thought I thought as well that it was basically just he he was he found a new mission and that was Teresa. But
Mm.
at the same time, he almost has a sense of detachment, I guess, in the end of the book. That's what I kind of had because he's lost
He's reached Buddhist
everything.
enlightenment.
Yeah, he's reached enlightenment. Maybe that's the whole point of the book is just detachment. I
Well,
don't know.
that would
Like
be that would be very kitsch. I don't think
yeah,
that's the
that would be.
message.
I don't think that was the message, but the fact that there are no missions. I mean, what does that mean? That
Mm.
there's no sort of, I guess, not purpose, but maybe it's about the thing that you initially thought you were supposed to do turned out to be something different in the end.
Well, everybody thinks they have a life purpose.
You think
Yeah.
so?
I
Yeah.
think most people think they do.
Yeah.
Do
At least
Maybe a
you?
good
I
portion.
thought I had a life purpose. What the fuck?
There's this clip that Thomas sent me of The Sopranos, and Christopher Maltasante is like talking to Paulie about the fact that, what's my arc? I got no arc. And Paulie essentially his answer is, nothing good ever happens, and so what? I'm half a wise guy. Let's go get a steam. Let's go to the sauna. Who cares?
Yeah, but Christopher wants his arc. Where's my arc?
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely relate to Christopher. I want my arc. Where's my arc? Where's the goal? When is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
and
Where's my mission? Come on, son.
maybe we all peak when we're like 7 and we're just running around before we even really know what's going on.
Maybe.
I hope not.
Maybe.
Because we're gonna live a lot longer. Oh my gosh. It's funny because I like talk to people that are like 50 and they're like, "Oh my God, my life is just so much different now." And it's like at our age you think, "My God, at 50 my life is over." Like I'm just old.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he's calling into question. I don't know. I think it's maybe it has to do with the things that you initially thought would be your main life or your main
mm,
purpose or your main
yeah.
goal or your main it turns out to be different. And maybe that there are no missions. Yeah, maybe there aren't any missions, but that's the lightness, the unbearable lightness of being.
Mm.
It's
Nice. That's a
just
good
that.
that's a good ending to the pod.
Boom! Cut it
No,
there,
no,
folks. We're
no,
done.
no,
Thanks for
no.
listening.
No. Oh, that was good though. Um, yeah,
That's
that's
because
it.
it is unbearable when you realize that you have no mission. Let's just,
Well,
if we were to take that as a fact.
Maybe the
But it's
real
light too, because at that point,
mm,
though everything's open. You don't have to worry. You don't have to care as much. You don't have to be so preoccupied in your own sort of vision of what you think your life should be.
yeah, and a lot of people can't bear the idea that there is no purpose, you know? Like some
Yeah,
people
and
have to
yeah,
grasp onto like a religion or like something to give life a
yeah,
me.
sort
It's
of
me.
purpose. Is it was me actually.
I mean,
I
I
mean,
need
but
something. I
because
think you
like
need something.
yeah, because without a purpose, like life feels almost too light, you know? It's I don't know.
well, then it's like nothing
Nothing matters.
matters. But I don't buy that necessarily personally.
Mm.
But maybe I'm one of these weak people that need to cling on to something.
Ah, your friends. Haha.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, I'm just kidding. But I guess I don't think anything would work if everyone accepted that there was, you know what I mean? Like, I think you kind of need it as a necessary illusion, maybe as a kitsch. There you go.
We need people chasing the carrot at the end of the stick.
Maybe. Think about it. Like, if everyone were to accept that nothing matters
Mm.
and that there is no mission, there is no goal, I mean, I don't know what would happen. Now we're heading into a really different direction.
I feel like nothing. I feel like it would. It's too far away from human nature. I think that
Yeah, I agree.
the
It wouldn't happen, but
yeah, all these there's so many utopian theories or ideologies, and I always think like, okay, are men and women still horny, for lack of a better word? Are they still greedy? Yeah. So then
yeah,
there's no scenario which you get rid of that unless you like surgically remove that from their brain and lobotomize everyone. And as long as that's there, then you're always going to have fights over resources.
there's always going to be the sort of basic survival drive,
Mm. But
no matter what.
isn't that the thesis of the Buddhists though? That like ultimate detachment's like suffering is desire.
Yeah.
Like
I
desire is suffering, and if you eliminate all your desires, your suffering sort of disappears.
yeah. I think no, there's lots of good stuff in Buddhism. I think you guys tell me what you think of this. I was thinking like, okay, so in Christianity, the ideal is Christ, and Christ
Yeah.
does go away and and meditates in the forest or whatever for periods of time, but he always comes back to civilization. And in the Buddhist texts I've read, at least some of them, for the most part, they're in the mountains and maybe they have a few students, but they're not super, they're not trying to like sort out politics and religion, like render unto Caesar what Caesar's. He's getting into the details of what you're actually supposed to do. And I feel like
Mm,
maybe the ideal in Buddhism is more of a detachment, and for Christ, it's more involved with
mm.
everything that the human goes through. Do you think there's
Yeah.
anything there to that? I don't know.
No,
I
I
mean,
buy that.
I'm not well versed in Buddhism. Like I've read a few, and I've spoken to different people, but I think it's definitely more. I would say Christianity is way more. It's way more engaged in the world. Like there's always been a social justice aspect to Christianity, right? Like Christ went and helped the poor. He hung out with the leopards. He healed, the sick and the weak
And with the tax collectors,
and the
with the
tax
the scum of the
collectors.
earth.
Yeah. Whereas
Fucking
whereas the
tax
Buddha,
collectors.
it's all this sort of like inner journey, I guess. And there's an inner journey in Christianity, but it seems like it's more focused on, you know, maybe I'm getting this totally wrong, but it's more of like the onus is on you to kind of absolve yourself of this suffering that's in the world. Like it's you that has to sort of transform, I guess. Whereas with Christianity, it's like you got to follow Christ. That's the big deal.
Mm.
He is your figure. Whereas with Buddhism, it's more like a sort of, I don't know. Maybe I'm just shooting for the hoops here, but
No,
I
I,
don't
I,
know.
I can kind of see like there's this part I read this Buddhist text. I forget what one it is. I think the book was called like Understanding Buddhism or something. And there's this one story where some prominent um, priest or like official or something goes to Buddha. So Buddha isn't like, going down to the people and like trying to, like, there's no Buddhist missionaries.
yeah, there's no
They're not trying to recruit.
evangelizing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So this guy comes to him and because Buddha's, teaching about nothingness and the void and all this stuff, this, politician comes up to him and is like, "What? So you don't believe in God?" And then Buddha just remains silent. So like anything that he doesn't know or can't answer, he won't respond. But it is kind of this. It is interesting, I guess, that yeah, Buddhism has this different. How did we get on this topic again? I completely forget.
But yeah,
I don't
now
know.
we're
I don't know.
I think it was because we were talking about like this idea that there's no mission, right?
Mm,
And
right.
or at least that's what the book is positing in the end.
Yeah.
And then I think it just kind of became natural that we start talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Man,
because Liam, you're reading a book.
Right. I actually got to hear it. It's very interesting. Buddhist scriptures,
Oh,
Penguin.
cool.
It's a nice edition, nice cover.
mm.
Um, not that far into it. But do we have anything else to say about Unbearable Lightness of Being or
Yeah, I was gonna say I hope there are no missions because I'm fucking tired.
Did we solve the problem of the missions? Like, where do we all sit? Where do we think the book? Do you think the book is saying there is no missions, or is it this sort of? Because I think that's what we've been on for the last 10 minutes.
I don't think it's trying to say that, oh, Thomas just found another mission. I think he's just flatly saying people don't have missions. Like there is none. People invent missions.
Yeah.
And he invented his missions for himself. Like he invented this one about sex because he thought that he had to like dissect the personality of the people he's been with, and that
Yes.
uh, there's this contrast. The narrator says there's two different types of womanizers. There's the one that like has a type and keeps going back to the same type, and there's almost something romantic in that. That like the individuals, trying to find their, perfect whatever counterpart. But then there's the other type, which is Thomas, and it's like this like explorer's mindset or something, or like this endless quest for novelty, or like the idiosyncrasies between women, and like that is just deplorable, and there's nothing really sympathetic or romantic about that. It's like almost like a Columbus, like, adventurer type
Yeah.
thing, and like, um, so, but yeah, he has this mission, and but then he realizes that, like, at least I found that scene where, like, the woman tells him, like, hey, don't you remember that time we made love during the thunderstorm? It was so beautiful, and he couldn't for the life of him remember the thunderstorm, and he felt awful that, like, because his whole mind was like about, like, focusing on the act of sex and, like, dissecting or whatever, he couldn't just abandon himself to the act of it and become, and, like, uh, forget himself and become trapped in this union of, like, of love, and because he has this sort of idea that love and sex are different, and he can't let go of that idea. And maybe if he did, he would realize in that moment, like, the like his soul merging with someone else, or um, yeah. So, but he abandons that mission, and he's like, I didn't
Yeah.
need to do that. Like, even the surgery thing, I thought that was my mission, and I didn't need that either. And he's happy. Like, he finds that being a window washer is like a good vacation. Like, he's like, oh, thank God, because, like, if his ismosen, like his it must be, was surgery, and, like, if he um fucked up in any way, he would feel awful for days. You know, like, oh
It
my
was
God, like,
unbearable responsibility.
yeah, but if as a window washer, he feels the amazing lightness of just going to work, doing your shit, going home and forgetting about it. So it's like, I don't know, there's always duality in this book of, like, um good and bad, lightness and heaviness, and yeah.
Uh, yeah, I think for the book, I'm not really sure. I really can't tell if the author intends there to be a mission or not a mission. Um, I remember reading this thing recently where it talks about the fact that if you really wanted to, you could just sort of drop out of society and give up all of these things that you think you need. There are humans who do it, homeless people, or, rock climbers who just are obsessed with that thing and they just do it for their whole they give their whole selves to it and they just sort of live off charity. And people do that and they're alive. Maybe their lives are a little bit worse. But there is a sense in which we're all playing a game, and if you really wanted to, you could drop out. So even if I say there's no mission, me getting up in the morning to go to work kind of belies that fact. Um, yeah, that's all I have to say. I don't really know. I'm not sure.
No, there is, like, at least online, I've seen this desire of people to, uh like, go off grid, or, like, live in a van, or, like, yeah,
Yeah.
completely
I've seen
abandon
that trend too.
society. I don't know. But isn't that,
Yeah,
like, kind of giving, well, maybe that's realizing that there's no missions, but isn't that kind of, I feel like that's almost
its own.
irresponsible in a way.
I
It's
feel
like
like
you're
it's
just,
its own mission. Maybe you can redefine it as
Yeah.
its own mission.
true. But it's like the world is fucked up, and my answer to it being fucked up is just ignoring it.
And hiding somewhere.
Yeah, that seems like almost childish.
Yeah, but
Is
yeah,
that the Kitch coming
Is that
back?
the Kitch? But also at the same time, like, Thomas, like, didn't sign the letter. Um, he decided that his love for Teresa outweighed his uh, desire to, um, forward some political movement, or, like,
yeah.
his responsibility, his duty. He's like, his son reminds him of duty, and he's like, Thomas is like, the fuck are you talking about, duty? What does that even mean?
I
But
guess
maybe that's
it's
callous, maybe that's nihilistic. I don't know.
uh, uh, the real unbearable lightness of being is the friends we made along the way. That's
It's a good book.
Okay, that's a good way to end it, son.
Thomas is dying.
uh,
That's a good.
uh,
Are you guys reading anything else?
uh,
Um, I just kind of started Naked Lunch.
Right. Yes. We're doing that.
It's so messed up. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
I don't even find it that messed up. I just find it bizarre.
We're
Like,
doing that next
what's your
week.
cut? Is this your
So
copy, Liam? Do you
I,
have the penguin?
I
I
got
I
this
don't have a
one.
physical one.
This
You don't have
is
a physical one?
No, I'm using an
vintage.
online one.
Oh, dude, you reading a like an ebook?
Well, because you know what,
Peasant?
I actually had a copy and I threw mine away because I hated it so much.
Yo,
No.
guys, I got a hot question. Okay, what do you think of ebooks?
They're
Um,
okay. They're all right.
I tried it and I hated it. I don't know. Reading on a
I have an
screen.
ebook. Um, the only reason why I got it was for traveling purposes
Hmm.
because you can get a
Yeah.
basically have a library with you all the time. But I would take the experience of a physical book any day.
Hmm.
I
I,
also
I
get
don't like reading books on the computer. Like that's my biggest pet peeve. Like
yeah.
that I can do an ebook because I can kind of sit down with it and actually it still feels like I'm reading something. But like on the computer, yeah, I don't know.
I get paranoid that I'm not gonna be able to like return. Like if I'm reading a book that's really important, I love to have the physical copy and to like make notes in the book so it never
Yeah.
separates. And I get like if you do an ebook, you can make notes, I think, right? They
You
have
can
that
highlight,
technology.
but you can't really make notes. Like you
Okay.
could type the notes on it, but
Mm,
that just takes way too much time.
yeah.
Like I yeah.
Yeah, I bought a like a Kobo for travel purposes because it was like
Nice.
small and waterproof. Um, but then on the journey, well, this was when I was in Europe, I was like, this little paperback weighs less than my fucking Kobo. And I just didn't, yeah, and it's cool. You get like when you pick up a book, you kind of like pick up the memories with it, however cliche that sounds. But like this has like memories associated with it. And I have books that I've actually like given away or donated that I wish I still had because there's like there's some sentimental value.
Reminds you of a place and time
Yeah.
in your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I had this like almost experience with it, like carrying around War and Peace for like 4 months. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'll definitely have a lot of memories, fond memories with Naked Lunch.
Yeah. Also, a Kobo has no personality. Like it's just like an ugly square little block that you like,
Yeah,
and
same with I have
they're
a
slow
Kindle.
and they're like whenever I'm
Yeah.
navigating through menus, I'm like, does this thing have like 2 kilobytes of RAM? Why is it such a slow piece of shit? And it's like, I
Yeah.
just give me the hand me the book, son. That's what I want. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not a huge like I have it, I use it occasionally, but yeah,
Mm.
the
Uh,
book, the physical book, it comes with a story.
Yeah, and then you can also be seen on the subway reading your book and make everybody else feel like morons. It's
Yeah,
great.
you can look really cool.
Yeah, really cool, really intelligent. Yeah.
Yeah.
do you guys audiobooks? I'm a big audiobook guy. You guys do that?
We talked about this
Um,
before. I can't do it.
Right, right, yeah.
it depends the type. I can't do fiction. I can do like history or like journalism, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
Like
Fair enough.
I
It's
I also buy a lot of the great courses like on Audible.
mm,
Those are really good. Like you can learn a lot from the great courses, so those can be good. But
yeah, so I've been reading, I don't know if you can see that it's Fooled by Randomness, and they come free with like for Toronto, they have their own app, Toronto Public Libraries, and
oh wow,
there's so many free audiobooks and it's great. I'm listening to Fooled by Randomness by Nassim Taleb. He's great.
what's that
Hmm.
one about?
It's part philosophy, part fiction, part like probability and statistics, kind of.
Wow.
A little bit of everything. It's I would recommend it to everyone. It's like a really um he's like one of a kind. He's really smart and he kind of dips into what we were talking about, like into the eternal recurrence and a little bit. Yeah, he was like a trader initially, like a finance guy, and
Mm.
then he grew up in Lebanon during the Civil War, and he's got like I don't know, he's super smart, and it's really hard to define what he writes about.
Mm.
He wrote Anti-Fragile.
Yeah. It's that thing where I really liked it when I was younger, and then I'm going through it again. I'm sure you guys have those books where you got to revisit it to really understand it, and you kind of my memory of it isn't as clear, and going over it is like just cements how smart he is.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I can't do the audiobooks. One, because uh, bad attention. Like I'll just my attention will start drifting, and B, um, I'll start. I think I told you this. I'll start my inner
Right.
voice, my inner reading voice will change if I listen to an audiobook too much. Will change to the audiobook speaker's
Wow,
voice. So like when
that's
I'm reading,
interesting.
so when I'm reading something else, I'll be like reading in like whatever British accent, and I'll
Wait, do you have
be
a long
pissed
commute?
off. It annoys me. I used to have I don't anymore. Like my commute to work is like 30, like 20 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, mine's like
Um,
an hour
Oh
10.
wow.
So that's that's what I'm doing. I'm just listening to audiobooks or physical books, but I don't
mm,
know. Audiobooks kind of easier.
yeah. I wish I could listen to audiobooks because then I'd probably consume more books, but yeah, I just can't do it. Um, yeah. What are you reading, Liam?
I'm just gonna
Me?
run to the washroom quickly. I'll be back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Just
watching? Oh,
just the
have you watched
Buddhism.
anything cool
Mm,
recently?
where did I see that was cool? I did see something. I don't know. How go you go first. I'll think about it.
Okay. I kind of want to wait for David to be back to
Yeah.
mention it, but
Do you want to pause? We can pause.
um, yeah, we can pause. We can wait for David. Um, yeah, I should. Oh, David's back.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
back.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I was professing my love for this book and saying how glad I am that Liam picked it. Um, be I don't know, it just scratched some itch for me, and he's such an amazing artist, I find, and he just passed away last year. Yeah, he's just such an amazing artist, I feel like there's this story that he or like I don't know if this story is real or not, but apparently he published an essay or something on abortion, and like the editor got back to him and said, "Yo, we can't publish this. Like you're too I forget which one it was. Either you're too pro-abortion or you're too anti-abortion. It doesn't matter because he said he felt that he succeeded as a novelist or like as a writer because he was misunderstood. Like his position was was misunderstood, which I really love. But um but yeah, we're gonna talk about movies that we watched recently. I recently watched I think it was 2 nights ago. I watched Poor Things. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, yeah. What did you
Why'd you
think?
go, ugh?
I hated it.
Yeah, why?
I hated Poor Things.
Why?
Like I thought I would really like it. Like I heard so many good things, but I've never like I've seen a lot of Yorgos Lanthimos movies. It just doesn't work for me. I don't
Mm,
know. Like I didn't really like Lobster, didn't care for The Favorite. There's just something about his movies that I'm not a fan of. But go ahead. What did you think of it?
well, I thought it was almost like similar in a way to the book we just read because of how morally ambiguous it feels. Because everybody I talk to has like a different reaction to it. Like some people, one of my friends said to me uh, that they felt like it was just a messed up movie, like it was super fucked up. And then another one of my friends was like, "Yeah, I didn't really know how to feel about it at first, but now I feel like I appreciate it a bit more because it's like so you could interpret it in so many different ways." And it seems,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
can
know.
see the overlap, but at the same time, I think it lacks the depthness of the Kundera book, if I'm pronouncing his name right.
Right, I don't think they're comparable, but still, I
No,
did
there
see
are
like
some
that.
similarities.
I did
Yeah,
see the
for sure.
similarities in terms of
Like the
like the
excessive
morality.
sex. Yeah.
or excessive sex as well. There's a lot of sex in Poor Things.
Half
Like
of
you
the
see,
movie's just sex.
yeah, Emma Stone having sex. Yeah, that's.
Uh,
But
what
yeah, I
did you
thought it
think
was.
of it though? Like I know I've
I
been kind of
didn't.
hard on the
I
movie.
kind of liked it. Like I did kind of like it, and I did. It does seem like a challenging movie because you have to like think about how fucked up the aspect is that you know these men are basically taking advantage of a woman. She has a fully grown body, but she has the brain of an infant. Like it's really
It's
sick and
strange.
it's very twisted and it's
Yeah.
really repulsive, but at the same time, I feel like the heart of, as cliche as it sounds, the heart of the film is basically a woman finding her freedom or like choosing her own way.
Yes. It kind of reclaiming her own autonomy.
Yeah, and in that way, kind of reminds me of Room with a View, which is a complete like
I
so
haven't
different
seen
from
that,
that
but
movie, but also it's about
that's
a no. Room with a View is a book by Ian Forster. I think it might have been a movie, but
no, it was a movie. Yeah,
was it
yeah. I
okay?
hear the book is much better.
The book is very good. I really enjoyed it, but it also, a little bit sentimental, a little bit kitsch. But anyway, um,
I don't know. For me, I couldn't get involved in the story, and I felt it just went on for way too long. Like that movie could have been, 30 minutes shorter. Um,
Poor Things.
yeah, poor things. I just remember not liking it. And it wasn't really the weirdness. Like I can handle weird stuff, but I just couldn't get involved in the story, you know.
Mm,
I but I get some of its themes like technology, you know, um, this sort of idea of freedom and autonomy and these men. But yeah, it was. I think more than anything, I thought the sets were very good. Like I think that
mm.
if I had to find an aspect and I thought Mark Ruffalo was pretty funny. Like that was good.
Yeah, he was pretty. He played the most awful character though. It's pretty insane. Liam, did you see it?
No, I didn't see
No.
it.
Okay.
Should I? I don't know if you're recommending it or not.
I'd recommend it. Yeah, go watch it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I
do
would say
recommend.
just check it out if you're curious. Like,
I do, David. I do agree with you. I felt like the movie should have ended. Like it almost seems like there's a second ending just tagged on at the end, like where she finds her past husband from like when she before she killed
yeah,
herself. And I don't know if I'm spoiling this for people, whatever. But I felt like there was like a second ending just like tagged on at the
yeah.
end, and I was like, why did this move? Why are they drawing this out? This is so weird. It could have just ended, but I think that added like another 30 minutes of runtime that was seemed a little bit unnecessary, but it was still yeah, still it was interesting. Like I'm not gonna say the movie's amazing, but I did like it.
It is something that, like
It was different.
it's a movie I didn't like, obviously, but I would still say if you're curious, it is something that is, it's not a boring movie. It's different, like it has its own vision, so it is very unique. But yeah, I just couldn't get through it. But yeah, and the actors are good. Like Willem Dafoe's good in
Yeah.
anything. I saw Megalopolis. I liked it.
Right.
Megaflopolis.
Megalopolis. I thought it was really good.
Yeah. Everybody
I,
hated it. I saw
I
all the
I think
Yeah.
it's like a 10 out of 10. It's a
no
great
Oh
movie.
way.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I gotta watch
I
this.
heard the editing was the worst part. Like, was very scattershot.
It's like one of those movies where it's either you're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. Like
Mm,
there's no in between. The acting is very different. Um, it almost feels like a stage play. So
mm,
I know no one ended up seeing it. Like when I saw it opening night, there were like three people in the theater,
mm. Crazy.
which is too bad. I mean, it's not like a perfect movie, but I liked it quite a bit. There is this sort of like basically it's like the Fountainhead sort of similar concept. It's like you have this visionary and he's trying to create this utopia, but you don't really know what the utopia is. The movie never really says it, but it's about him, and then there's this mayor, who wants to keep things the same. Um,
Mm.
yeah, it's definitely out there. It is a wild movie, like, but I think what it does with the camera and the framing, I think like the CG kind of looks a little fake at times, but um I think it kind of creates a new language. Like it really does something different, which I don't think a lot of movies can do that. But yeah, not a lot of people liked it. Megaflopolis. So
Yeah, I did not hear good things.
I what else did I watch? I don't know. When it's October, I usually like watching a couple horror movies.
Mm.
So I started watching this one. It's like this low budget well, I watched this low budget Canadian movie called Siege, and it take took place in Halifax
Oh, no way.
from the 80s. It was like a B movie. It was pretty schlocky, but it was basically these bad guys are trying to get after these four people, and they have to it's pretty run of the mill siege movie, but kind of cool. I have this what do you call it? It's called Shudder. It's like a streaming service for horror movies, so I got a free trial. So I've just been going through some
Mm.
Nice.
of that.
Have you heard of there's this Quebec movie coming out called, or it's already out, it's called Humanist Vampire Seeks Consenting Suicidal Person or something like that.
No,
Where
never heard of that. That's a wild title.
where it's a vampire and he or she, I watched the trailer and I want to watch the movie or at least have a go at it. Vampire doesn't want to kill anyone, but they need to kill someone to survive. So they're seeking a consenting suicidal person in order to kill them. It should be a funny movie.
Yeah, it looks kind of interesting. I wonder if it's like a commentary on the I don't know, like a assisted suicide
Mhm.
legislation.
Mm.
Yeah, maybe.
Now we're hitting hot topics.
Hot topic. Yeah.
Should
Controversy.
we, you want to wrap it up?
Um, oh, I also watched Manchester by the Sea recently. Have you guys seen that one?
No,
Oh
I
yeah,
never
that's a
saw it.
very, very uh dark movie.
Very dark, but also very funny. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It was a
Um,
good movie, yeah. I think I watched it when I was probably too young though. Like I feel like now if I watch it, I'll probably appreciate it more.
mm. I also watched Past Lives.
What'd you think of that?
I thought it was pretty good. Um, I wasn't like blown away. Like the reviews were like amazing, but it was good. But also very sad. Like, fuck. Like, cried twice.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. There's really not much. Are there any other new movies? I don't know. I feel like the movies are just getting worse and worse over the years. Like there's nothing that I'm like excited to see, you know?
Yeah.
Uh I can't think of anything.
I've been
When's that
wanting to watch
when's that next Marvel movie?
oh God, fuck Marvel. Um
I need to see Captain America Part 25.
there's this movie that's been like at least circulating online a lot. Is it called Perfect Days?
I saw that when it first
The
came out.
Wim Wenders film. Yeah.
Yeah,
What was that like?
Do you like
it
it,
was
Liam?
good. It's all in Japanese. It's kind of boring, and it tries to imitate when Wenders loves Ozu,
Oh,
and I
okay.
love Ozu, and I think he was trying to do an Ozu thing, and he just doesn't really pull it off. It's more boring than inspiring.
Yeah, that's what the sense
It's
I kind of got of it. It's supposed to be like
hmm.
the slow burn movie, but a lot of people accused it of, yeah, just
Yeah,
being
you guys have
boring.
you guys seen any Ozu movies?
I
No.
tried watching
You gotta
Tokyo
watch it.
Story and I thought
Gotta
it was
watch
a
it.
little bit boring. I think
Yeah.
maybe I'll give it a second chance. Like I'll
We'll
watch it
try
tomorrow.
he's got a few color films that well, I think later in his career he's better. I that's people I guess that's like a normie take about Ozu is like just his color films are kind of better. I don't know. He has a bunch later in his career. I feel like every single movie is like 10 out of 10. It's so good. It is a little boring, and you kind of have to. I feel like that's part of it. Like the boringness, you sort of get that feeling, and then you work your way past it, and you sort of look at how beautiful the framing is. You listen to the characters, and I don't know. Once you
Do
get
you
over
like
it, it gets better.
do you like Jim Jarmusch movies?
Not particularly. I don't.
Which
What's
ones
his
have you
most popular?
seen?
I recognize the name, and I think I've seen something.
I
Jim.
feel like you might like him. Uh, a good movie of his. Hmm, Stranger Than Paradise is pretty good. It's pretty
Oh, he
funny.
did Ghost Dog too.
Yeah, I like. Do you like Ghost Dog?
I like Ghost Dog. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
Ghost Dog's really funny. Um, Actually, in a lot of ways, it's a pretty funny movie. Like because you have those gangsters, and then they're like, "Who's this guy, Ghost Dog?" And but I feel like he's kind of got a similar style to Ozu in the sense that it's slow cinema. Like
Right.
his
Oh,
movies.
Patterson. I saw Patterson too.
What did you think of Patterson?
I thought it was good. I remember being like, okay, that's a good movie. I remember thinking it was like Ozu, like the showing of
Yeah,
the complete, like just his daily life. Yeah.
Patterson was very good. Uh, yeah, I've seen. I think I've seen almost all his movies. I like his movies quite a bit. Broken Flowers is really good. Very sad, but very good movie.
Okay.
It's with Bill Murray. Um, do you like Robert Bresson?
No, I don't know who that is.
So he's kind of similar. I feel like again, I haven't seen Ozu, but Ozu sounds very similar to Bresson in that it's slow cinema.
Oh, right. I tried to
Um,
watch the donkey one, the one about the donkey.
oh, Hazard about yeah, I can't speak French, so I don't really want to try and pronounce it. But the one with the donkey, yeah,
Bresson. So which one?
I
Oh,
like
Azar,
Pickpocket
the
and
donkey one?
The
the
donkey one.
donkey one. Yeah, I've been trying to find a couple of his other obscure movies. They're kind of hard to get. Um, they have them on the Criterion channel.
Yeah, I've got a Criterion channel.
Oh
Just
wow.
torrent it, dude.
Yeah, it's pretty
I
good. It's
mean,
like
what?
$10 a month.
Don't do
So
that. Don't torrent movies. It's illegal.
what?
What?
We do not
Criterion
support
cri-
Piracy.
torrenting.
Criterion's like $10. It's you got everything on there. You got Ozu, you got basically every
Mm.
movie. Like I feel like it has
Any
every movie you want to watch.
art
Art
house
house,
movie,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I'm calling it. We've run out of things to
Yeah,
say.
this podcast is gonna be like 3 hours if we keep going. Thanks for
Well,
listening,
it
everyone.
was a
We
good
have
podcast.
yeah, we have anything else to say? Last thoughts, book or whatever, or anything?
I didn't realize this was part of it.
Next week, Naked Lunch,
Yeah.
hopefully,
Get
and then
ready.
the week after that, Eichmann in Jerusalem.